Welcome to the Big Biz Show, featuring insight, analysis, and a lot of stuff that's none of your business.
Hold on. This is the Big Biz Show. I think it is their business.
Making the markets work for you. Here's the man with the plan, Sully.
He unfortunately does not have the plan to be with us today. It's Costa, it's Mary Bird Godwin, it's our executive producer, Greg Todorov. Welcome back to the Big Biz Show, wherever you're watching, wherever you're listening. We certainly appreciate you being along for the ride. Where do we have the word where he is?
I think he's a little under the weather, as they say.
Oh,
I think.
I got the black lung pop. He's not feeling well?
I don't think.
Is it under the weather or under the weather?
You mean
No, I think
enjoying the weather?
Yeah,
Or,
yeah.
that's a great question. I don't know.
All I know is that I walked into the studio today and I was sitting where I normally sit, where Mary sits right now. And Greg goes, Mikey, not today. And I'm all, are we shooting today? He goes, no. You're behind the desk today. I was like,
You're driving the bus, dude.
Oh,
How does it feel?
Doesn't it? It feels like remember in Ferris Bueller's Day Off?
yes.
When he's there's the Ferrari. There's the Ferrari.
Yeah.
You know, doesn't it feel like we've been given the keys to the Ferrari?
Yeah.
Really? And we all know what
We're
happens.
going to have to.
Ferrari at the very end.
I was going to say we're going to have to.
Oh, I hope not.
God help us.
Yeah,
God
I
help
hope not.
us. He has got the Ferrari of hair as far as the Big Biz Show is concerned.
Oh, it's nice.
And that's our Big Biz Show market analyst, Howie Font, and he joins us as he does every show. Howard, how are you, my friend? How was your weekend?
Great. I'm happy to crash in on the Nunya show.
Oh, well, speaking of crash.
Speaking of crash.
Speaking of crash there, Howie.
I have to be careful with this Ferrari, you know?
Dude, I will eternally be jealous of that flow you got. What do we have? What's going on today with Freddie Mac?
Well, listen, I wanted to talk about housing affordability because Freddie Mac put out a report that said that 78% of baby boomers don't even plan on leaving their home to downsize or upgrade or change in retirement at all. And that's important because usually the generations have gotten bigger, but usually some people, larger families downsize, other people move in, and you kind of have this rotation in the market.
Sure.
And if that's not going to happen, then we're going to have to build like 1.5 million new homes, and that's a big problem, especially with inflation. So when we're talking, I'm from New York, you guys are in San Diego, bastions of affordable housing. I just don't think that we're ever going to have another generation of wealth accumulation by real estate. You're going to rent and like it.
Okay. So my wife and I, we have a 252-month-old who's living with us right now. And we're hoping one day he'll, strike out on his own and hopefully buy a house, whatever the case may be. But I'm hearing more and more that parents, their kids into their mid-20s, even late 20s, are living with them just so they can sock up enough money to hopefully get enough to make a down payment on a house.
Well, I would even question the merits of owning. It seems like a good idea, and it seems like something that you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
But why would you take on the burden of property tax, repairs, insurance, when you have the option to just rent? The only risk is they're going to raise the rent on you, and so you don't have that stability. But financially, I don't know that it's the leveraged bet that it has been in the past, and to the upside for most people. And we also see that people are moving more and more than they used to. So I just don't think it's going to stay the same. And owning a home is unfortunately just not going to be the way you build wealth.
Now, is this case in California, in all 50 states?
Well, California has an extreme version of the problem, but it's all over the country, and part of that is because we need new inventory, and with inflation, lumber, concrete, all that, it's getting hard to even buy to build. So,
Howie, always appreciate it, my friend. You look marvelous as usual. We'll talk to you next time. That's our market analyst, Howie Font, here on the Big Biz Show. More after this.
It's time for science time. Science time. Gonna do some science with Howie. Science time.
Devin, man, come on. We have the conference. What are you doing?
I'm getting ready for the science fair, man. That's why we're here, right? You said science fair?
I've been waiting for this moment for a long time.
Howie, I got a science experiment.
Oh, really? You do?
Yeah, dude, check it out. See, yeah, how did you know what to do? Science.
We're here at the Bio International Conference 2024. We have another interview with a great company, Evaxion Biotech. Is that right? If I could just ask you both to briefly introduce yourself. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having us here, Harry. I'm Christian Kanstrup. I'm the CEO of Evaxion Biotech.
And my name is Stina. I'm a director at Evaxion Biotech.
Evaxion is a quite unique company in the sense that we were founded back in 2008 as an AI company with the objective of decoding the human immune system. And you can say 2008, people were looking at the two co-founders, smiling a little bit, thinking, we actually don't know what AI is, and you can't even use that for developing new drugs. Of course, fast forward to today, the world is completely different now.
That we have actually both a lab and an animal facility to not just do the AI testing, but also validate it in-house. So we have a pretty fast turnaround time from AI to validation.
So, Howie, it's day 2 at Bio Conference, and I've learned a lot about bio.
Oh, really? Name one thing you've learned. You haven't been paying attention at all.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Hey, good.
What?
Exactly. That's what I thought. We're back at Bio 2024. This is a frequent guest of the Big Biz Show,
James
but
Saperstein.
We're glad to see him here. Mr. James Saperstein, thank you so much, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Programming note, frequent viewers will know that First Wave Bio has actually changed to Entero, and the new stock symbol is ENTO, Entero. Could you talk to us a little bit about the presentation you gave at Bio earlier today, why you're here, and just anything exciting going on here from Entero?
Sure. So let's talk about the name change first. We decided to move over from First Wave Bio once we merged with Immunogenics because we now have 4 products for gastroenterology, so we wanted to make it more about gastroenterology. So Entero means whole in Spanish, but Latin, but it also means intestinal or gastrointestinal. So any investor that's looking at this will know Entero Therapeutics has to be a gastroenterology company.
Well, I know you won't say it, but folks, we were actually outside of the presentation and it was swarmed afterwards. A lot of partnerships potentially and a lot of interest. Is that correct?
That's correct. A lot of interest. I think I said it on the Sully show before. We do have a potential partnership with a large pharma company. We've met with them again. The interest continues. It's a lot stronger and tighter than it's been in the past.
How important is a conference like Bio an opportunity where everyone gets together? I mean, you're using it as an opportunity right now, as you just said, but could this be done via Zoom? Could you be doing this on phone calls, I guess, or is it just much easier here?
Well, look, I'm biased. I'm on the board of Bio, so this is my 15th or 16th meeting. I really think these meetings are important. You cannot do this in Zoom. I mean, you can walk down any aisle, you're going to run into 4 or 5 people that you've known over the years, and you're going to learn something. You're going to learn something new. You're going to come up with a new idea, maybe a different way to write a strategy that you hadn't thought about. That doesn't happen if you're not meeting in person. And I'm sure you can sense it for me, just the excitement of being here and being around my colleagues and people in the industry, there's nothing like it. That's what gets me excited. It's the journey right now.
Yeah, and long-term shareholders, I'm sure, are going to be rewarded, and of course, the patients' outcomes and lives are going to be changed. So, thank you so much, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Yeah. This has been the Big Biz Show.
Oh, Howie. He's good. Check it out. Man of leisure. Man of leisure. Well, he's no NASCAR driver, I can tell you that. It is the Big Biz Show live from the Loft 100 studios. Hope everyone's doing well. Thank you for being along for the ride. Costa, Mary Bird Godwin, Greg Todoroff, our man Sully, and our new friend, Crash Font.
I like the ring.
It does have a ring.
Crash is a good name. I love Crash is a great name.
Rip's
It
a
is.
better one.
Rip? I had a good friend in high school named Rip Fritzer.
Oh, wow.
Great football player. His name was Rip. Well, and you know what the cool thing is? Howie didn't walk in one day and say, "Hey, everyone, call me Crash." No, he earned it. He earned it. Oh yeah, he got it. We attached it to him. A little bit of. I would have rather have him called Bump versus Crap. Bump's good. I like Bump. Bump Bailey.
It's more of a fraternity.
Yes. Here comes the Day Trader Trio. Yeah. All right, so I want to talk about all of these metric points and data points that we get almost every day. And if you read Market Watch, watch any of these type of programs and news and stuff, you start hearing about real income growth expectations, consumer confidence, and such. And there's a reason that markets and governments measure these things, because they're open-air indicators based upon telling you what's going to happen in the economy. How we talk about U.S. household expectations for real income growth over the next 1 to 2 years. Is this a good picture? Is it a bad picture? Or is it exactly what we thought? Because everyone I talk to thinks we have stagflation, which is really a combination of low wages, unemployment, and inflation.
Yeah, and can you imagine having stagflation, seeing prices rise? I mean, it's compounding.
It's the worst thing that can happen.
We're 20-30% over the last few years. You know, year on year, it's 5 or whatever. But since 2020, it's up 20-30%, depending on the good. Yeah. Compound that with, then you also don't see yourself getting a raise, and in the future, you don't think you're going to get a raise.
Right.
We're in the worst situation as far as that, the income expectations people have, since before even 2009, which says a lot. Yeah. I mean, the whole economy came down. And this is just, bad policy. There's not been a crisis. It's a slow-moving crisis.
So this is the deepest decline since 1980, right?
Wow.
That's 50 years almost. Mm-hmm. Think about that. I mean, it's so the expectation is we're capitulating at this point. Yet markets seem to be going up still, which is a reason why I always say the income, the economy is not the stock market. 100% of us take part in the economy. 47% now, post-COVID, take advantage of the stock market. It was a little higher. It's a little higher now than it was pre-COVID. Pre-COVID was about 42%. So really, the consumer's assessment of their overall financial situation is dropping as well. So it's not just income, it's their situation. Yeah. And that's dropped the lowest since 2022. Talk about that. That has to do with consumer confidence as well.
Yeah, I mean, none of these metrics look great. They're at a 2020 low. Right. Not good. And let me just ask you guys, it's kind of macroeconomics 101. We always talk about, when you're first learning economics, what moves demand? What moves prices? Mm-hmm. And it's going to be supply and demand, but a demand mover is not your actual income, not your actual savings, your expectations for the future. So if you think that you're going to win the lottery, or you're going to win the lottery in a year, you might start spending a little more and not save for the future. Mm-hmm. But do you guys act like that?
And a great example of that is when we start getting hit stimulus.
Yeah.
Stimulus, you knew you were going to have more money. Mm-hmm. What did people do? During COVID, they were scared and they knew they were going to get more money. Yep. So they hoarded cash and paid off their debts.
Right.
We had the lowest amount of consumer debt during COVID, believe it or not, and the highest amount of savings. Mm-hmm. Also the highest incidence of alcoholism.
Yeah.
Right. So was the government's thought, hey, stimulus, you guys are going to go out, you're going to spend this, and we're going to kind of jumpstart the economy. Didn't one smart bean counter think, wait a second, these people just might sock this away, they just might pay off their bills, and it's not going to turn out the way you want it to?
They were putting it into the market. I thought people were spending.
No, this is what happened. During COVID, when we had the first stimulus, you had to do stimulus because people lost their jobs. People had to pay the rent. So what was happening was that the 18 to 20% of people that had to pay the rent paid the rent. The rest of the folks used, your fear and greed philosophy, and the market, as we know, runs on fear and greed. If you think in terms of that, people, paid their bills off early, paid down their credit card debt, and socked some money away at the side. Okay. Then we got a second stimulus. What did we start doing? To his point, we started shopping. We saw shopping like we haven't seen. And our credit was not affected because we were using the cash to do so. Now, if you look in terms of supplying the system with money, it's called money flow, okay? Money flow going back to 1918 in this country. If you pump money into the system, whether it's for the Great Depression, the Great Recession, COVID, whatever, and you do it because you think you have to, the first time works fine. The second time is what's sketchy, and the third time threw us into
what we are in right now. Okay. And if you follow a chart, a point and figure chart like this over time, so let's call this COVID. Money flow went up to here during COVID, then it went up to here a year later, and then a year and a half later it went up to here. What follows money flow? Interest rates.
Yep.
Interest rates.
And inflation.
And inflation
Yep.
because of interest rates.
Yep.
And so the idea is the Fed is tasked with lowering inflation, having decent interest rates, and the maximum employment rate. Well, 70% of our economy is based upon consumer spending. That's a good thing. But when you have nothing but consumer spending and no supply, so you have a demand problem and a supply problem, what's going to happen? Prices are going to go up even further. And that's what's happened here. And here you are. Thank you, administration.
Not to get political.
You may not like Donald Trump, but you should like what he did and what Ronald Reagan did and some of what Bill Clinton did, whatever side of the fence you're on.
It is the Big Biz Show for the Loft 100 Studios, Southern California. Wherever you are watching, wherever you are listening, thank you for being along for the ride. I'm Mike Costa. That handsome guy right there across the bar is our executive producer, Greg Todorov. And of course, the guy right there, that's Sully.
Oh, my
That
God.
is Sully.
You and Biden.
120 million TV homes strong in 175 countries. Thank you to BizTV, American Life Network, Bloomberg Financiero, soon to be Bloomberg EU, and of course, American Forces Network in 175 countries and all the ships at sea. God bless our military men and women serving our country overseas and underway.
Always.
Look at the day trader trio over there. Trace has been jogging or got very sick. And he's selling products from Acapulco.
He finally plugged in that treadmill you bought him.
You know, we're recreational legal. We just don't have an infrastructure yet, so understand. All right, great to see you today. Of course, the familiar face, Dr. Jonathan Javitt, who is the founder, director, and chairman of the board of this little company called NRX Pharmaceuticals. Great to see you. How are you, sir?
Wonderful to see you.
You're starting to be sort of a member of the cast. You've been here so long.
Big time.
And now there's a Bizumentary coming out. Of course, we have a trademarked documentary called a Bizumentary, which is basically about Jonathan's space that the network wanted to do and give the opportunity to get some exposure for you guys. And we're going to be able to see that on BizTV as well as the other networks here coming on very shortly. And you'll see it pretty in high rotation here for the next 9 months. But it's great to see you. And there's lots of stuff to talk about. And then we're going to spend a few segments talking to you. And of course, you have a couple of guests we brought on. Of course, Mike Taylor, our investment banking expert, is going to be with us as well. And of course, coming up later in the program, Dr. David Feifel. And I'll let you explain who he is. But let's talk about ketamine. We've been talking about that ever since we met you. Ketamine being sort of aimed for the standard of care for suicidal ideation and a number of other things. My question for you is, if ketamine is going to be the standard of care, then why the heck hasn't the FDA approved it yet? Or why has anybody brought it up before?
Well, you know, it's a great question. And in fact, on next Thursday, the Reagan-Udall Foundation in Washington is hosting an all-day conference on exactly that question with the FDA, with the public stakeholders. But the short answer to the question...
Nobody asked nicely.
Nobody asked at all. Now, that's
a problem.
That's not exactly true. Johnson & Johnson did ask and did get approval for a nasal form of ketamine, and that's used in some patients. But most doctors want to be using the intravenous ketamine, and nobody's asked.
Real quickly, because you talked about this at the very beginning we talked to you. Talk to us about the difference between the nasal, the oral, and the intravenous, as far as efficacy and safety and so on and so forth.
So as far as oral ketamine goes, nobody knows. It's the Wild West, and the Drug Enforcement Administration has shut down the guy who was mailing homemade oral ketamine around the country and telling patients to use it.
Probably a good idea that he said.
Probably a good idea. Probably drugs that are used in the United States should be proven to be safe and effective for their intended use and not to be abusable. So nasal ketamine and intravenous ketamine achieve similar things. They get ketamine into the bloodstream. Now, if you do it with a needle in an IV bag, you know exactly how much ketamine is going into the bloodstream, and you can achieve a steady state dose. If you administer ketamine through the nose, then you're giving a blast of ketamine, you're getting a sharp spike, and then you're getting a downdraft. So you have to keep giving nasal sprays up to 6 times an hour to maintain that steady dose. And the anatomy of the nose has a tremendous amount. You know, some people have these turbinates that stick into the middle of their airway that diverts the ketamine down the back of your throat into your stomach. So the pharmacology of nasal ketamine is much less regularized than the pharmacology of intravenous ketamine.
You talk about multiple doses in nasal ketamine. It brings up the question about how many doses at all. So when we talk about intravenous ketamine and as a treatment, is this something that would happen once a week? Is it once a month? Is it as needed?
Well, it's a great question. We know that the pharmacologic effect of ketamine wears off between 3 and 5 days. Now, does that mean that somebody's going to immediately have a recurrence of depression or recurrence of suicidality? That's a very individual thing.
And is there an endpoint, by the way, to treatment at that point, right?
And that, too, is a very individual thing. Bipolar depression, which is the form of depression that's most likely to be associated with suicide. You know, think Matthew Perry, Robin Williams, Kate Spade, Anthony Bourdain. That's an episodic disease where, you know, most people thought of Robin Williams as sort of a manic guy. They used to call it manic depression.
Right.
These are people who are the brightest light in the room. But when they get depressed, it's lethal. In fact, if you know 2 people with bipolar depression, you have one of those 2 people is probably going to try to kill themselves over the course of their lifetime. If you know 5 people with bipolar depression, one of them is going to succeed. Whereas what they call major depressive disorder or unipolar depression, you have people whose life goes between okay and pretty sad, and those people are actually much less likely to harm themselves.
No kidding. The name of the company, by the way, NRX Pharmaceuticals, they're publicly traded. NRXP is a stock symbol, NRXP. We've got Dr. Jonathan Javitt here. So talk about the intersection of NRXP and this question, if ketamine is headed to be the standard of care.
Well, so
have you talked about the FDA and where you?
As far as we know, we're the first people who are heading to the FDA with an intravenous form of ketamine that should be approvable. And in order to do that, we had to put together efficacy data proving that not only is there a difference between ketamine and placebo, which is what you have to do with most drugs, but as you just saw with the massive failure of ecstasy to get approved, MDMA to get approved, the FDA said, no, if you're going to try to get approval for a drug that can have a psychedelic effect, then you can't just test it against placebo because people who don't get a psychedelic effect don't know they didn't get the drug. You need to test it against a drug that gives people sort of a sham effect. So that they're not sure which drug they got. So one of the studies that we're presenting to FDA is one where ketamine's been compared to a drug called midazolam, which is commonly used in minor surgeries, in cataract surgery. It makes you feel funny, it can make you feel drowsy, but it's not an NMDA antagonist drug. It doesn't have the same pharmacologic effect as ketamine. And in that study also, ketamine had a potent anti-suicidal, antidepressant effect, whereas midazolam didn't. And when they took the midazolam patients and said, now let's give you ketamine, they had the same ketamine effect as the people who got put on ketamine in the first place. And then the third study we're going to show FDA is one where ketamine was randomized against electroshock therapy. And technically it was non-inferior to electroshock therapy, but if you actually look at the numbers, it was better than electroshock therapy in treating depression.
And we've talked about that in past shows, and I think the BizTV is going to touch on that as well. So you've basically made ketamine a life-saving drug. The path forward needs to be, where can we get it? Clinics, correct? That's got to be path forward.
Well, the path forward is how do we put it in a bottle? Because not only do you have to be able to show the FDA that the drug works, you have to show that you know how to make it, and you know how to make it the same way every time. Because the generic formulation of ketamine hasn't been reformulated since the Korean War. And one of the things that's in it that people don't recognize is a pretty toxic preservative. It's called benzanthonium chloride, which you can find on Wikipedia. Wikipedia will tell you this is a poison.
If Mike could spell it, we'd find it.
Yeah. Wikipedia will tell you this is a poison. You don't want it in your bottle.
Stay right there. We're going to keep you over. Plus, we got a couple extra guests coming up here to talk about the path forward in terms of clinics and everything else. Dr. Jonathan Javitt, Chairman of the Board, NRX Pharmaceuticals, stock symbol NRXP. You can go to nrxpharma.com. More Big Biz Show continues. Stand by.
Loft 100 Studios, The Big Biz Show, our affiliates, and our hosts are not registered investment advisors or broker-dealers.
Our show hosts make no commitment that the purchase of securities of companies profiled or otherwise mentioned in our programming
are suitable or advisable for any persons, or that investment in such securities would be profitable in general.
Given the nature of our company's profile and the lack of an active trading market for their securities, and investing is highly speculative and carries a high degree of risk. We profile selected publicly traded and privately held companies on our program.
Most of these companies that we profile have provided compensation to Loft 100 Studios and its host for the profile coverage.
3, 2, 1. From time to time, we sell shares of the companies profiled in the open market that we receive as compensation for coverage of client companies.
But never sell stock if we are speaking about, interviewing, or covering a public company who has paid compensation.
Specific questions on compensation can be obtained by contacting producer at sullyandgroup.com.
Listeners should verify all claims and do their own due diligence before investing in any securities mentioned on this program.
Investing in securities is speculative and carries a high degree of risk.
We encourage our investors to invest carefully. Duh.
And read the investor information available on the website.
On the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, at www.sec.gov.
Or the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, FINRA, at www.finra.org.
Oh, I get it. I like the way you do. Hold on. No. I like the way you. Why do you sound like Julia Childs when you try to do Michael McDonald? Listen, baby. And Mom says, listen, more butter. I like the way you save the liver.
It is the Big Biz Show rolling on from the Loft 100 Studios. Yes, we get paid to do this. Costa, Maribor Godwin in the red, Greg Todoroff in the black. The guy in the blue is Sully, with two very, very special guests here at our blackjack table.
Well, one.
Well, oh, man.
Stephen Allgood.
Thank you.
Oh, excuse me, somebody not getting paid today?
Wow.
Did you just finish it like that?
Fade out.
Okay, pick that thing. There's no fade out in this show.
They quit on it.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Day Trader Trio up there.
Love them.
Ryan Jordan, of course, has played with the likes of Lauryn Hill and James Brown and Dave Matthews, and also the Mira Mesa Bowl on Friday nights when it's...
he kills it.
Yeah. James East, 3 Grammys, 4 Tonys, and a restraining order, and an expired Costco card right there. Good to see. Can you play that again? Can I get a little more of that? Because that fade thing was kind of lame. Hey, Trace, can you give me a little, Trace? Trace.
1, 2. There we go. Welcome to the Big Biz Show. What it is, though, the name is Sojourn and a turn. Every microphone burn. Off the top of the mind. At the drop of a dime. Ain't no stopping the shine. 2 times.
There it goes. Wow. You can't teach that.
Nope.
Sir. Good to see you today. 125 million TV home strong. Nationwide, coast to coast. Big Biz Show on BizTV Network, American Life Network, and of course, Bloomberg Financiero, and then Bloomberg EU coming up next month. You know, they wouldn't put us on primetime Bloomberg. Maybe it was the article that said business with the barroom slant, I think is what happened there. Good to see you. I'm going to talk tomorrow. We're going to bring up that section. We're going to have 2 more segments in the next couple of days. One's going to be pick my shorts for you, Mary.
Love it.
And that's when we pick the stocks we're going to short this week.
Perfect.
And then we're going to play Ask Sully, where you guys get to ask any question about the economy. And I have to punt and say, Greg, what do you think? And then... And then we hear that, and that's over.
Is that where you show us what's on your phone?
Yeah. What's that? I'll show you on my phone. I took all the anatomy class pictures off of there. So
okay. All right.
Can I say this? Here in San Diego, you'll be watching us in New York City or Texas or listening to us somewhere across the world. But I remember part of my life in San Diego was going to Mexico. like literally once a week. In fact, it was interesting because back in the day, you would go down there, you'd spend $5 to go get gas down there cheaper, which made no sense whatsoever. But it was kind of a thing on Friday night. You just go down there.
Or Wednesday night.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the thing.
You've heard of ladies' night? Mary went to hard liquor and handgun night.
Escape club. That was my. That's where it was at.
But I was given. So I remember going to Cabo San Lucas, and if you're not from California, it's literally hop's going to jump down there, and it was undeveloped mostly about 25 years ago.
Yep.
I got the opportunity to buy some property in a place called Chileno Bay. And I could have bought myself a piece of property there for about $200,000. And I'm going to commit suicide tonight because that same piece of property is worth about $20 million now.
Wow.
The interesting part about Mexico, which is Mike's favorite drink, the bottle of romance in Mexico, which is tequila, is that it is basically where a bunch of expats are starting to go. Mm-hmm. But they used to go there because it was reasonable to buy something there. But the places like La Paz, Gran Sueño, places like Cabo San Lucas and others are changing that. The next big thing, this is what I hear, and who do I know? Or what do I know? I know a lot of people. Mazatlán. And if I'm not mistaken, that's going to be kind of the next frontier there. Stephen Allgood is the president managing partner of AB Hospitality. They are a development company. Don't you already own a bunch of hotels, and would it kill you to give me your invitation?
We were supposed to get that to you. I apologize.
First of all, before we get into Mazatlán, I do want to talk about how you started in this and how difficult it is, because you can't really own land in Mexico, but you can operate effectively with a good margin. Talk about the ins and outs of that.
Well, you can own land, oceanfront land in Mexico two ways. Being a Mexican national, I'm not, as you can tell, or you can own a Mexican corporation.
Oh, okay. So you form an entity.
That's correct.
So that seems like the workaround, and I think Mexico got smart by actually offering that.
Yeah, and it's a way for them to tax and to manage the process.
What is when you hear about Mexico or you hear about any other country, do you have to have boots on the ground before you get in there to kind of navigate through that? I mean, was there in the very beginning a consultant that walked you through that process? Because it's not like going into City Hall in the U.S.
Yes, we actually engaged a retired city official that walked us through the process.
He knows a guy who knows a guy.
Exactly, exactly. Very long 3-hour lunches.
Seriously, you've been in the hospitality industry for 37 years. What was the tipping point to talk about Mexico in the first place?
Well, it was a place that I was brought to by a colleague going, you need to go to Mazatlán, you need to see the ocean, you need to see the culture. And I was hesitant. And then we scheduled a trip and I was like, okay, I'm sold. This was a beautiful culture.
So what's interesting is when you talk about valuation, because you guys are finance guys as much as anything else. And you don't want to, you want to make sure it's fairly valued, but how do you get fair valuation in an emerging market in Mexico? And probably no difference in the U.S., but it just seems like a little more of a measure twice, cut once, so to speak, in your due diligence. Is that about right?
You want to respond to that?
Well, yeah, I think.
Look,
really,
Mike Taylor's here. Our finance guy.
Mike Taylor's here.
Just happened to walk in the door.
Yeah,
he's smarter in this area.
Well, I mean, you're valuing it like you would any other property anywhere else in the world. So in the case of the Westin property, this is Marriott. So AB Hospitality is developing an all-inclusive resort for Westin, Marriott flag in the ground. So a lot of that valuation, it's no different than if it was here in San Diego. And what we're seeing now, especially post-COVID, and I hate the term post-COVID era, but in this case,
what it is.
Still going on. It is. It's still going on.
Is it, Mary? Are you really post-COVID? Are you past it?
I'm past it. I just had it 2 weeks ago. That's probably why I wasn't here.
Did you not say hi to him when he came through the door today or something? Because man, he's just.
I know.
Wow.
I'm a little lippy today.
You got a mouth.
Oh, that's cool.
She's got a mouth and she likes to run it. So the financing question, there's enough established valuation, enough established sort of tombstones in terms of deals that you guys are not reticent about the fact that it's Mexico. I mean, let's face it. And look, I've got property on top of land in Mexico. I've been going there my whole life. But this is a country that shuts down liquor stores and bars on election day. I mean, it's still a little bit interesting how it's not quite where we are, but it's certainly, there's certain regions of that. And again, Cabo San Lucas, La Paz, now Mazatlán, that's making it credible. So talk to us about the resort. What was what's happening? What's the plan? What's the decision? And when do we get to go?
You can go anytime you wish. Well, the plan is it's a Westin resort and residence, and it's an all-inclusive resort, and that is a amazing emerging market. The destination resorts where you can go and everything is provided.
Wow.
And the stay used to be pre-COVID. You'd have an average stay of 7 days. Now it's 3.5.
Yeah.
Because people have the liberty and the autonomy to work from home, and so they travel and they do their work.
Is when you say an all-inclusive resort, does that mean there's hotel rooms and residence for purchase, or is it a timeshare type thing?
No, it's 100% for purchase. And matter of fact, that's meeting with Marriott, and once again, we speak to them monthly. The Westin residence side, which is a 100% acquisition of a condominium.
Oh, no kidding.
And it is one of their strongest markets they foresee over the next 10 years.
See, and here's the thing. I heard that story before, and I didn't buy into it. And it's like, honestly, if you look at Cabo, it's really...
Exactly.
And the interesting part is, so how I understand hotels to work is there's a developer that owns the property, but you insert a hotel company to run the hotel side. Is that accurate? And that is Marriott.
Marriott. We've contracted with Marriott to manage the resort and residence once they open.
And then, of course, the residences, you talk about... I'm sorry, did you say Four Seasons? Did you say...
Westin.
Westin. So how do they play into this?
The Westin residence side, we sell all the residents, and it's just like any other condominium building, and you have CC&Rs, and Marriott manages that on our behalf, except for it's staffed 24 hours a day, like it would be a resort, because it's next to the resort, and then all of the residents and their guests get to use the resort facilities at a discounted rate, because once again, it's all inclusive.
Yeah. Stephen Allgood and Mike Taylor here talking about AB Hospitality. What's interesting is I don't think I've heard all-inclusive in a while.
I just heard it. I was telling him I got a text from a friend yesterday who's at an all-inclusive resort, and so I wanted to ask you about that. Is it really all-inclusive? So food, drink, activities, and it's not just all these.
And what time is me and Mike's watermelon eating contest? After the volleyball
that's one of the entertainment shows.
After the volleyball game.
That's a show.
It
is all inclusive. The only thing that's not would be a motorized sport. Okay. But otherwise, out of our 11,
so like a jet ski or something.
Correct. Like out of our 11 food and beverage outlets in the resort, you could walk up to the Azul Coffee Bar and just take whatever you like. You can go into the little the market you have and take things for your rooms. We have...
Isn't that called looting?
Yes, but not inside the hotel walls.
Can I ask you, was this property in place and you guys are taking it over out of a distress thing, or is this from scratch?
This is from scratch. This is, the earth is, as God intended it. We have almost 600 yards of oceanfront beach.
Wow.
And you have the land is clearing, and we build from there.
So right now, in its present state, where do we stand in terms of construction and so on and so forth?
Well, it took us many years to get to the point where we can get permission to build.
Right.
So we have permission to build now.
Okay.
And we have design that we presented. HKS Architects International is our firm that we use. So we know what we're building. So
how do you finance a project like this? Is this a combination of non-dilutive debt and equity, or how do you?
Both.
Okay.
Both, and I think. Well, actually, I know the number one component that structures this deal are the residents, the revenue from the residents upon opening.
Right. So since you are the tip of the spear for capital, with not only family offices and debt, how do you approach that? I mean, obviously you have multinational family offices, which means you have guys in Mexico, you've got guys everywhere, and of course for Bloomberg El Financiero residents, we're gonna have to get a 800 number. But how do you approach that?
So the investment dollars coming within Mexico is enormous. And there's a lot of family offices and various money pools from Mexico that have had their money elsewhere. And now in the current administration in Mexico, there's tax incentive for them to repatriate those funds. And when they repatriate, they have to go into projects that are on Mexican soil. This gives them an opportunity to be a part of a Westin Marriott project.
Is there incentive to repatriate? Like here in the U.S., there's all kinds of tax incentives. Move us here to
very much.
So Mexico is actually taking a foot forward and taking a longer look.
Yeah. I'm sorry. So is there fear that every 6 years you're going to be dealing with some sort of different cat or different mindset when the presidential elections happen in Mexico, or is everybody overall okay?
No more than a year.
No
2
kidding.
years longer there.
I think Mexico has a very stable. Their institutions are very stable, especially on the banking side.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So it would be. I think there was a lot of concern when Obrador came into office that there was going to be these great disruptions.
Right.
And it didn't happen.
Okay.
So Mexico now has really become that player in the Americas, and to the rest of South America, they're kind of the go-to model. So it's incredible.
Well, what's interesting about this is that it's almost like, it's unlike equities in terms of stocks, because you have to conduct due diligence on market dynamics and who's in the lunchroom, who's running the company. This is a tried and true model.
Yeah.
I mean, this goes back to Acapulco in the 50s, but more recently, it is a really lucrative model in terms of development, and the sky's the limit. I mean, who would have thought that a 3-bedroom condominium in Chileno Bay is going for $6 million?
Yes.
$6 million. Yeah. I mean, beautiful condominium. But I mean, who's got that kind of cake to go visit every once in a while? I mean, it's a very sort of criteria specific audience, isn't it?
And we have, Forbes, we've all heard of Forbes. Forbes continually, 10 years running, ranks Mazatlán as one of the top 5 places for Canadians, Americans, and Mexican nationals to retire to.
Is Mazatlán, so if I think in terms, and forgive me because I'm not familiar with, in terms of where Cabo was 10, 15 years ago, is that where Mazatlán is now? Or are we late to the party?
No, I think they're much further along. I think they're probably 5 years out from the standpoint of even mirroring Cabo, but they don't want to mirror Cabo.
I'm just talking about the business model in terms of evaluation and
I would say you're 5 years out. Example, the Montage, they're selling their residence in Cabo for $4 million. Wow. $4 million, 58 units, 53 units, $4 million. We have our penthouses inside the Westin Resort, 4,000 square feet.
I think we need to send a camera crew down there. Devin, I just think we need to go down there and take it. I think so.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we won't see Devin for 3 weeks, but.
And that's one of the greatest things behind our contract with Marriott. We have the right within that contract to grow up. If we wanted to go from Westin to a Ritz-Carlton, it's within the contract.
What's next for you guys? Like, what's the next steps? And are we in the middle of financing right now?
We're in the middle of financing.
Wave a magic wand. What happens in the next 6 months?
Yeah. So once the financing's in place, contracts are ready to go with Marriott. And they break ground and they start building.
You've had to raise money for projects in the past. Are you concerned about the economic environment?
Not at all.
Yeah.
Once again, it's a tried and true product. You got a Westin residence, you got a Westin resort. Marriott's going to manage it. It's all ocean front. It's a tried.
I think we have to do a show there, don't you think?
I agree.
It's going to take us 2 weeks to research it, so we'll go there, and then we'll have to go back
a month.
Stephen, will you come back with us? I think we should get the word out to all of our audience.
Be honored.
125 million TV homes across the country, Armed Forces Network across the world, and of course Bloomberg El Financiero. Stephen Allgood, Mike Taylor.
It's all good.
Thank you.
I've heard that before.
All right, more
first time, Mike.
Hey, Mike, volleyball and the bead thing is later on today. Let's go. White Sands, Mike's head on my shoulder.
And what's your advice? Potato goes in the front?
Yeah, potato goes in the front of the Speedo. Safety tip. Big Biz, we'll see you in a minute.
Are we still? They actually.